The idea behind Forgotten Games was to look at games that can no longer be purchased anymore, but it would be a disservice to call Lord of the Rings Battle for Middle-earth series forgotten or abandonware. Although discontinued due to licensing issues, the game still boasts an active and healthy modding community, with the second game having recently received the final version of the massive Age of the Ring mod. When I heard of that mod, I was curious as to why I had completely overlooked this now unavailable title and sought out the services of a reputable businessman for transaction. 2004, huh? Not a year in which I had much time to game. I was commuting to work at 5 AM in the morning, eating a family-sized bag of chips at lunch, and being screamed at by my boss for being nervous in her presence. Just, normal stuff.
It's hard to believe one so stupid and weak is capable of running a Klingon house.
I would, however, find the time to also play Warhammer Dawn of War, and Rome Total War. You could say I was doing a lot of things for the Empire in 2004. I hardly would have found the time for some sort of, movie adaptation. A freaking... No disrespect towards the great film series. It definitely defined the look and feel of Lord of the Rings for a generation. Maybe for all generations since. This game wraps itself in this aesthetic, absolutely revels in it with a dogged sort of accuracy. Every unit and event adheres to the movie. The book, I guess, ultimately, but the movie aesthetic, specifically, I mean. We don't need to go into the story, really. You know it, and I know it. If you don't know it, I don't know why you'd care now. When you're watching something on a game adaptation of the movie that you can't buy anymore, like, why are you here? Isengard, Helm's Deep, the Gates of Mordor, as well as specific heroic scenes in the movie are all recreated faithfully. Seeing Frodo and Sam escaping on the boats, that one moment where they're, surrounded by the orcs, is a very nostalgic feeling. And the game just nails that scene perfectly in a top-down format. But the narrative influence does affect the gameplay to its detriment at times. This is in most ways a traditional RTS. Some of its more distinguishing features are that building is limited to designated points on the map, with various amounts of slots. Units can gain experience and upgrades and all have the predictable counters you would expect. And if you don't know, the game will tell you. There is also an expanding selection of spells that range from anywhere from temporary forces to massive buffs. And there are, of course, our faithfully represented heroes. Since the game sticks to the narrative so faithfully, a lot of the good campaign is trivialized by, at times, being handed overpowered forces like Ents or an entire army of reinforcements. Aside from the story missions that solely feature the heroes, you choose your force on the campaign map, then pick a province. I always wanted command points as a reward to expand my army limit. The good forces are split between the Gondorians and the Riders of Rohan. Because of how carefully the game sticks to the movies, each side has a limited amount of unit types. But essentially, if you're Gondor, you build rangers. If you're Rohan, you build all the cavalry. For a game with heroes, although their abilities can be momentarily useful to turn the tide of a tough skirmish, they can go down quicker than you can feasibly react. If you're thinking, wouldn't a hobbit be absolutely useless in battle? You'd be right, so keep them secret. Keep them safe. Because units earn levels to carry over onto the next mission, there is eventually an avalanche effect, where each mission will begin with your army of veterans usually able to steamroll your opponents before they can even get up and running, at least during the good campaign. On the evil campaign side, the story is a sort of alternate history narrated by Saruman about what if evil actually won all its fights. You choose between the forces of the Isengard Uruk-hai or the Mordor orcs with the Haradrim. The Uruk-hai are the superior option, always. Fully upgraded crossbowmen combined with spearmen to ward off cavalry are a near unbeatable combo in enough numbers. Mordor orcs and Haradrim die too easily. Mordor trolls are basically arrow magnets, as are Mumakils. It wasn't until the forces of good spanned endless trebuchets at me I realized this is what Mordor is supposed to be doing. Mordor's catapults are meant to be used as a glass cannon tank, I think, and spanned endlessly in some sort of nuisance tactic, like equipping rats with magnums and unleashing them into the trenches. My Mordor orcs never gained any veterancy because they kept dying. I never kept a single one. My Isengard orcs didn't die so easy. I kept them from start to finish. I have to commend Saruman on his superior orc formula. Aren't they literally born in shit from elves corrupted to the dark? Like, where exactly are they getting all these elves? They're immortal. I'm pretty sure they're not breeding like rabbits, so like, how are there so many of them? Where do these armies come from? What superior kind of fertilizer goes into Isengard orcs? Like, Isengard also get to have lurts who can annihilate heroes. They're corrupted elves. Do they even remember their past memories? Does Lurtz remember a time when he was an elf guy with flowing silver hair and elfisexual good looks, doing graceful elf things before he got green-pilled? Apart from Saruman, who is a fragile old man, there's a distinct lack of heroes on the Mordor side as well. The Nazgul are absent for most of the campaign. Is that mechanics or is that thematic commentary? Surely Sauron is both an absentee father and a helicopter parent all at the same time, constantly watching and judging, and that'll mess anyone up. But my mind keeps going back to the tragic tale of Lurtz. Like, since elves are immortal, does Lurtz remember a time when he looked upon the faces of the gods and spoke with them? Is that trapped somewhere in his orky skull? Does he think about that, about what he's become? The forces of good do feel like they're pulling out all stops and fighting for their survival against an endless horde of shit-pilled losers. In all honesty though, they made it with their own endless human wave attacks reminiscent of Stalin's tactics in World War II. Like overcoming the odds with your inferior armaments and your poo-poo people with shitty sheet metal huts. It makes you feel like the underdog overcoming titans. Look, it just feels like I'm getting endlessly oppressed when I'm playing the evil side. I just can't cop a break. Assaulting the Gondor faction walls is particularly frustrating as the evil side, and many times I had to try to get my veteran unit ranks thinned a little at the start of the mission just to squeeze a siege weapon into my command limit. At least my lost little orcs will grow back. Where the human units heal with buildings, the orcs will replenish if they have a banner carrier in a process described by Tolkien as parthenogenesis, which is Sindarin for, Anyway, I realized why the good side had such an easy time of it, as I never had to besiege any walls playing as the good. A lot of enjoyment of that campaign's moments came from really tense scripted defenses, surviving its waves of orc attackers before being rescued by last-minute relief forces. When you actually play as the orcs, you don't get that endless horde reinforcements, you just get inferior troops and exposed buildings. Also, I had mechanical annoyances with how much space the units on the evil side seemed to occupy, with the units constantly pushing and jostling each other, something I never noticed in the good campaign. The game's visuals fit perfectly. The terrain is gorgeous, the units are all thematically consistent and instantly recognizable, and readable at a glance. Let's take a peek at the charm and character of these animations. The production and craft that has gone into everything is obvious at a glance.
We've got the Grand!
I particularly adore these rare little vignettes told inside the interface during key scenes. Not many games are played with the idea of using the interface as a narrative tool. Maybe Dead Space's absence of an interface, just as a statement, springs to mind. I suppose maybe there's a couple Kojima examples. Metal Gear. I think there might have been a HD pack installed at some point before I put this in the old vault of forgotten games, and there was some weird artifacting on the glowing effects I noticed on only 2 occasions. I manually set the resolution to 4K, and there were no interface scaling issues, surprisingly for a game of this vintage. The game does use pre-recorded in-engine video, which always looks pretty dated when running the game at resolutions of which they couldn't have ever dreamed of. Heh. Fools. The music is, it's the Lord of the Rings soundtrack, so you know what you're getting. There's maybe some songs on there that were, basically the same thing. Sounding the same, sort of consistently the same, just kind of the same, really. It's the Lord of the Rings. Moving on. Sound design is about what you'd expect on a AAA title. And of course, all the characters are represented by their movie actor counterparts.
Stay sharp!
If you're looking for a competent strategy game that has a few balance issues, but still perfectly evokes the look and feel of the Peter Jackson movie series, this is a good start. There is a well-regarded sequel though, and what little of it I have played, I know it shakes up the formula a lot. There's a dwarven faction, naval combat, spider riders, a story that doesn't stick to the movies, you can build anywhere, and it's pretty hype. So that might be the better option. Although I plan to keep playing it, I'm a little bit Lord of the Ringed out to be doing a review of that one. I can definitely say this game gave me the movie nostalgia feels a lot of the time. If only to go, I remember that scene, I was here that time that Lurtz chased the heroes on top of a rock. I think big time, that's a feeling that you can't put a price tag on, I guess. I mean, literally in the case of this game anymore, because it's not sold anymore due to a license, but also figuratively. Whatever that price is, it's probably worth every penny of that $14.9 million settlement for unpaid overtime during crunch